Imagine someone desperately needing to be rescued, but on the way, the emergency team runs into someone with zero sense of decency. Or worse, a group of clueless people blocking the road. Today, we're taking a look at what happens in situations like these. What's more important, a standing up for a cause or saving a life? Check out this moment when a protest nearly brought ambulance traffic to a complete stop. Even with sirens blaring, the protesters just didn't seem to care. They were too focused on their demands to think about anyone else. Sometimes it's a whole group, sometimes just one person, like this cyclist here. Either way, it's like people forget that someone's life could be on the line. In cases like this, the authorities have to step in and clear a path so the ambulance can get through. But come on, it really feels like common sense is in short supply, especially in situations where drivers straight up refuse to move aside for emergency vehicles. Now think about it. What if it were you in that ambulance? Deep down, we all expect that if the worst happens, help will get to us quickly enough to make a difference. And yeah, even in heavy traffic, people need to work together. Sadly, in this case, it took a while for that to actually happen. And in this situation right here, where an SUV is blocking the ambulance's path, things get even more serious. Because according to the video, the patient inside was a newborn in critical condition, needing urgent medical care. Even with all the idiots on the road, we've got to give credit to the ones who actually do the right thing. Like this biker who saw people blocking the road and stepped up to clear the way for an ambulance. Sadly, that kind of help is rare. Just look at this ambulance stuck in a massive traffic jam in Sao Paulo, even with police and volunteers trying their best to open a path. Most roadblocks are set up by protesters, but it's worth asking, is it really fair to block all vehicles? In this case, protesters stopped emergency services from getting through, leaving an entire community at risk. And what about when the authorities end up making things worse instead of helping? Back in June 2021, in Copacabana, Rio de Janeiro, the police themselves blocked ambulances to let Chile's national soccer team pass through with priority. They didn't stop to think that someone might literally lose their life waiting those extra minutes. As we can see, even firefighters have to deal with reckless and clueless people. And it's not just protesters, bad drivers are a big part of the problem too. These everyday heroes face all kinds of challenges, including cars just sitting in their way. Every now and then help does come, like in this case where a pedestrian tried to handle the situation on his own because someone refused to move out of the way of a fire truck. Probably not the smartest move blocking a fire truck, huh? Pretty sure that guy's gonna think twice next time. On top of all this, we also need to talk about situations where the rescue itself is hard, not because of people, but because of the location. Sometimes it's not a protester or a bad driver getting in the way, it's the poor condition of the road and the lack of government action. In this case, even though the road was technically clear, the ambulance still couldn't get through easily because the street was in such bad shape. And that can lead to accidents, like this one. A poorly maintained dirt road caused an ambulance to flip while trying to reach a patient. Thankfully, the paramedics weren't hurt, but what's shocking is that, according to locals, this wasn't the first time something like this happened. Now this one's just outrageous. A guy refused to let an ambulance pass, even though there was no traffic ahead and the road was totally clear. Then he got out of his car to try to intimidate the ambulance driver. What, does he think he owns the street? Here's another frustrating example. The ambulance had to move super slowly because of one reckless driver blocking the path. And here's yet another case from 2015. Local shopkeepers were protesting for road repairs, but during the 4 hours of protest, even emergency vehicles weren't allowed through. Eventually, military police had to step in just to make sure ambulances could get by. This last one is absolutely infuriating. An ambulance wasn't allowed to enter a supermarket parking lot because the employee said they needed a supervisor to open the gate. By the time they got it sorted, it was too late. The patient waiting inside died before the paramedics could reach her. A lot of times when people are out protesting with their banners and signs, they forget that ambulances can't just sit around waiting, like in this case from 2002 in London. Then there was that other mess caused by protesters from Just Stop Oil and Extinction Rebellion. These activists seem pretty set on blocking emergency vehicles, totally ignoring flashing lights and blaring sirens. The Prime Minister's spokesperson even gave an interview about how serious this is. And in the same show, one of the activists, who claims to be a climate scientist, tried to justify this reckless behavior. But honestly, none of his arguments hold up when someone's life is on the line. Here's another case. A major avenue got shut down by the local government on a Saturday night, right when emergency services are usually at their busiest. The ambulance had no way to get through.
De São José do Rio Preto, uma das principais, que é a Juscelino Kubitschek.
Still in Brazil, protesters blocked roads and even set fires on the streets, stopping everyone, including ambulances. They were angry about changes made to local traffic, but one ambulance driver trying to save a stroke patient did something incredible. Without hesitating, he drove straight through the wall of flames, all to give that person a shot at surviving. In São Paulo, a housing protest took over the streets. A few dozen people marched with signs demanding proper housing, and while it was a peaceful protest, the traffic jam it caused was anything but. Ambulances and fire trucks got stuck, and the authorities had to redirect traffic, which just made things worse, causing even bigger delays. Over in Hungary, a guy blocked an ambulance in a way that was, well, bizarre. He was just a pedestrian, completely zoned out, and didn't notice the vehicle backing up toward him. The ironic part? He ended up needing medical help himself, and totally messed up the responder's job in the process. And what about when it's the patient getting in the way? Emergency services get dozens of calls a day, so when they show up and the person pulls a stunt like this, once again, we see how a lack of respect and basic decency is everywhere. In France, drivers flat out refused to make way for an ambulance. The driver had to stop, signal, maneuver, and honk like crazy just to keep moving. Check out this moment when a passenger train blocked an ambulance. It had to just sit there and wait for the crossing to clear. Now that raises a tough question. In a life or death situation, should the train stop to let the ambulance go through? And then we've got another example of a total jerk in a car, blatantly blocking an ambulance right behind him, almost causing an accident. It doesn't matter where it is, even leaving the base. Ambulance drivers can't catch a break. The road might be completely clear, but there's always that one idiot parked right in the exit lane, blocking the way. Seriously, and how does a truck driver not know they need to move for emergency vehicles? In Italy, there's a shocking clip showing the moment a reckless motorcyclist crashed straight into an ambulance on the highway. The bike was completely totaled, and sadly, the rider died on the spot. Sometimes people's lack of willingness to help is so frustrating it's hard to watch. Take this simple situation, that the driver of this car couldn't even bother to reverse a few feet to let the ambulance through. That's all it would have taken, just a few meters back. It's honestly unbelievable. Then there's this outrageous clip, a driver with zero empathy just sitting in front of the ambulance blocking the way. You can clearly see the ambulance driver needs to get through fast, but this guy just sits there like a coward and won't move an inch. And look at the kind of stunts ambulance drivers are forced to pull off just to try and save lives. They're constantly risking serious accidents, sometimes because of sleepy or clueless drivers who just don't pay attention. Now check this out. On a highway, a traffic patrol was supposed to be helping, right? But nope. The patrol car was blocking the emergency crew instead. It's wild. The vehicle was parked diagonally across the road, getting in the way. Luckily, the other drivers around got fed up and stepped in to help the ambulance push forward. And in yet another case where people who should be helping are actually making things worse. This fire truck had to push a police vehicle out of the way and even ram into another parked car that was blocking the street. All this while trying to reach a burning building. This next one's straight up disturbing. Political extremists set an ambulance on fire. Can you imagine? Not only did they stop it from reaching someone in need, they destroyed public property in the process. In the end, everyone loses in situations like that, no matter what side you're on. Here's a weird one. A motorcyclist crashed at a busy intersection and landed right in front of an ambulance. Just bad luck or a wild coincidence. Either way, it brought everything to a halt. And even on rainy days, when traffic is already slow and slippery, you'd think people would be more helpful, right? But no, this driver still wouldn't move aside for the ambulance. Bad weather already makes emergency work harder. Why add to the chaos instead of helping? Now look at this news footage. Even with flashing lights and a blaring siren, the driver of this white car refused to give way. Inside that ambulance, a patient in cardiac arrest. And every second counts. Imagine living with the fact that you blocked someone's only chance to survive. Most people have at least heard of Greenpeace. It's a well-known non-governmental organization that works to protect the environment. But where do we draw the line when it comes to activism? Here, we see a group of activists literally sitting on the ground, blocking an ambulance from responding to an emergency call. Here's yet another example of a selfish idiot getting in the way. The driver of this blue truck refused to let paramedics through even though the ambulance was rushing to help someone in cardiac arrest. You can clearly see the ambulance driver frantically asking for room to pass, but the guy wouldn't budge. The ambulance only managed to get through when a small gap opened and they were able to squeeze past. According to the paramedics, that lost time had a serious impact on the patient's condition. Things got way worse because of the delay. In this video, an ambulance driver shares what it's really like to deal with people who block emergency vehicles. He talks about how he almost crashed into a pole because one driver wouldn't move, even after seeing the ambulance coming right at him. On top of that, he says he always has to be extra cautious, even when time is critical, because of careless pedestrians and stray dogs suddenly running into the street.